Well, a good weekend to you. It's Saturday. I'm meteorologist John Dawson. This is the Fox 26 YouTube tropical forecast. Want to make sure that you are staying in tune with what's happening out there because, of course, this is the peak of the season and things can happen quite quickly. And for us here in Houston, there is definitely something that we kind of want to keep an eye on. We're not overly concerned, but it's definitely in that zone of keep an eye on it sort of a situation. But I do want to start with a little bit of a flashback with Ida because this was quite a storm that we saw happening last week, and we'll sort of look at the whole life of Ida quickly because this made a huge impact on a lot of the United States, and even at the very end there with the flooding that was in New York, really a bit of a surprise even. So we watched Ida move through, became a very powerful hurricane, making its landfall as a Category 4 in Louisiana. And then when we jump, again, most of us knew that there would be rain, but the amount of rain and the intensity of it was definitely on the high end of expectations when it started headed towards the Northeast and the parts of New England. So we get into Wednesday evening, and you could see all of the darker reds there indicating those heavy downpours where they were recording 3 inches of rain in an hour, and that's just very, very unusual for that part of the country. And it dropped all that and then pretty much fell apart very quickly afterwards, but had one final punch as it left the United States. So that was Ida. That was kind of what we were dealing with all last week. And now when we look at the week ahead, we're definitely going to be watching what's happening down in the far southern portions of the Gulf of Mexico, the Bay of Campeche. And the National Hurricane Center right now are keeping the odds pretty low that this will actually get a tropical development. So that's kind of the question is, will the upper level winds relax enough that this can actually get enough organization to it? That's really what's going to be the struggle over the next week, and especially over the next couple of days, because right now it's just not favorable, and it's going to be very difficult. So that's why in the next 2 days, the Hurricane Center, and this is 4 p.m. Saturday or 1 p.m. Saturday information that we're looking at. The forecast here for Larry in a minute will be the actual 4 p.m. update. But Saturday afternoon, here's the latest from the Hurricane Center. Not expecting anything for the next couple of days because in this part of the Gulf, it's just not going to be favorable with those upper level winds that it would develop into anything. Now, once we get past Monday and into Tuesday, that's when we see a little bit higher chance that something could develop within this area. And at the moment, it is favored to continue ahead to the northeast. And we're going to look at the GFS model here in just a moment to sort of take a better look at that. But here's kind of where that area of invest is right now, at least officially kind of identified from the National Hurricane Center, just moving offshore and into the waters there. Again, very hard to pinpoint any sort of low pressure at the surface, and so this is, in my opinion, just sort of a good estimate on where things are right now. It's just not any organization to it. But again, over the next couple of days, keeping an eye on it as it moves it forward, and we'll, of course, keep you updated. The mid to the upper levels of the atmosphere, some high pressure. This is what's going to pretty much protect the Houston area, at least the way the forecasts look for the next week or so. And also, it's what's kind of contributing to some of those winds that are causing the problems for any sort of development. So high pressure kind of more or less remains in this area. So that's why when we see things wanting to slip over to the eastern side of the Gulf and not over on our western side of the Gulf is kind of what we're expecting. Now, the water temperatures, though, definitely going to cooperate. Once you get into the 80s, that's plenty warm enough. So any sort of tropical development, when you get to the mid to the upper 80s, then you're getting into some bigger and stronger storms as a possibility. You do have this area here that's cooler. That is definitely associated somewhat with Ida when it went through there, but also just in general, a little bit of less sunshine helping to warm things up. So definitely warm enough. Even that 83 degrees is plenty warm enough to cause a system. So until we get into late Monday and Tuesday, you're just not looking at a very organized system whatsoever. And then as we get a little bit later on, you'll notice you can begin to see a little bit better idea of some low pressure forming, the winds getting a little bit more organized. You see the rains getting a little bit more intense. This is just one of our models, the GFS. That's one that we rely on a lot in the tropics. And remember, this is going to be Wednesday by midweek. So we're keeping an eye on things because this certainly isn't far from Houston. And maybe some of this rain impacts us to some degree. But a tropical system doesn't look like that's going to happen, at least in Southeast Texas. And that continues to move a little bit further over to the east. This could easily slip down a little bit as well. If it stays over water longer, that's going to be giving it more time to form, and we'll continue to monitor that. So let's jump ahead now, talking about Larry. Larry is a big, powerful hurricane, and it is out in the middle. I mean, it is way out in the Atlantic. It's going to pretty much stay there the whole time. So we're not, even though this is going to be a Category 4 hurricane most likely, we're not overly worried about it. We're not spending a long amount of time on it, but it is certainly a system that will be moving towards most likely ending up, if it makes any sort of land impacts, it will be more into Canada even than it would be the U.S., but potentially a little bit of impacts to the far northeast. But once it gets into that cooler water, you notice how it's losing some of its strength. It went from a Cat 4 down to a Cat 2 once we get into Thursday. It would be, again, a little bit of a weaker storm because of the cooler waters. Just a reminder, we are up to Larry, so Mindy. It looks like if that system in the Bay of Campeche were to be formed into a named storm, Mindy is the next one on the list, and that's the most favorite area that is sort of on there as well. It's a great reminder to keep ready for hurricane season all the time here in Southeast Texas. Make sure that you go to my social media accounts at John Dawson Fox 26, and you can even just use the hashtag of Hurricane Gear Test. Lots of great products to talk about, help to keep you ready. Hopefully just putting things in your mind of what you might need as far as supplies go. And also you could search for meteorologist John Dawson as well on YouTube and find my account there with all of the hurricane gear tests to kind of keep you ready. And I have to tell you, remind you, the Fox 26 weather app. It's a great way to stay connected once there is something tropical. And of course, we'll be back here on YouTube again tomorrow. Make sure you check out the video.